The mansion stood on the edge of the hill, wrapped in golden evening light. Through its glass walls, you could see the city far below, glittering, alive, and yet, so far away from the man who owned it. Michael Reynolds, 38, billionaire CEO of Reynolds Industries, sat in his leather chair by the window, his jaw tight and eyes distant. He had everything money could buy: cars, power, control. But lately, he'd started to suspect that no one around him was real. Not his friends. Not his employees. Not even the people who smiled at him every morning. He had begun to test people. Small, quiet tests that revealed who they truly were. And tonight, the test would be for Evelyn, the new maid. Evelyn was barely 25. Shy, soft-spoken, and always avoiding eye contact, she seemed almost invisible as she cleaned the corners of the mansion others ignored. Her movements were careful, respectful, like someone afraid to break something that wasn't hers. Michael had noticed her silence, the way she flinched when he raised his voice to others. "She's too quiet," he'd told himself one morning. "No one's that good without a reason." That evening, when Evelyn entered the master suite, the air was heavy with rain and the faint scent of cedarwood cologne. Michael lay on the couch, pretending to be asleep. A glass of whiskey rested on the side table, half empty. His phone was still unlocked, a detail he had left on purpose. Evelyn stood at the door for a moment, hesitating. Her hands clutched the cleaning cloth nervously. She didn't know he was testing her. She thought he was just resting after another long, cold day. The only sound was the soft ticking of the antique clock and the gentle rhythm of Michael's fake breathing. Evelyn tiptoed closer. Her eyes moved from his face to the floor, then to the glass near his hand. She noticed the phone screen glowing faintly, an open email. Words like layoffs, restructuring, termination list flashed before her eyes. Her heart sank. She whispered under her breath, "He's firing them? All of them." Michael's ears caught every word. He wanted to see if she'd pry further, if she'd scroll, if she'd gossip. But she didn't. Instead, she sighed softly, the kind of sigh that carried worry for people she didn't even know. Then, gently, she took off her cleaning gloves and reached for a blanket folded on the chair. Slowly, she draped it over him. Her hands trembled slightly as she tucked it near his shoulder. "Don't catch a cold, sir," she murmured, almost too quietly for him to hear. She turned to leave, but something made her stop. Her gaze lingered on him, this man the world called heartless. And then, she did something that would stay with him forever. Evelyn knelt beside him, clasped her hands together, and whispered a prayer. "For peace in your heart," she said softly, eyes closed. "For kindness to find its way back to you." Michael's chest tightened. No one had ever prayed for him. Not his family. Not his friends. No one. For a moment, he almost opened his eyes, but stopped. Something about her sincerity felt sacred. She stood, wiped her tears quickly, and left the room without a sound. Michael stayed still long after she was gone. The rain began to fall harder outside, tapping gently against the window. He opened his eyes, staring at the blanket covering him. And for the first time in years, he felt warm. He whispered to himself, voice barely audible, "Why would she pray for me?" The question lingered like a ghost in the silent room. What do you think? Was Evelyn's kindness real, or part of something deeper she hides? The next morning, the mansion awoke to the hum of quiet footsteps and the scent of brewed coffee. But for Michael Reynolds, sleep had been impossible. He couldn't stop thinking about what Evelyn had done, the prayer, the blanket, the trembling kindness in her voice. It haunted him in the most unexpected way. He sat at the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, replaying every second. "Why did she pray for me?" he muttered. "She doesn't even know me." His assistant, Robert, entered the room, holding a tablet. "Sir, you asked me to prepare the termination list." Michael raised a hand. "Hold it." Robert froze. "Sir." "I changed my mind," Michael said quietly. "No layoffs. Not today." Robert blinked in disbelief. Michael had never changed a business decision for emotional reasons before. Later that day, as Michael walked down the marble corridor, he saw Evelyn polishing the glass railing near the stairs. She didn't notice him at first. She was humming softly, her voice fragile, almost childlike. He paused behind a pillar, listening. The melody stopped abruptly when she caught sight of him. "Good morning, sir," she said quickly, bowing her head. Michael studied her face. There was something different about her. Her eyes looked tired, not from work, but from something deeper. He decided to start a conversation. "You're new here," he said, his tone unexpectedly soft. "Yes, sir. 2 weeks," she replied. "Do you like working here?" She hesitated. "I'm grateful for the job." He noticed her avoiding his gaze again. It wasn't shyness alone, it was fear. But fear of what? That evening, curiosity got the better of him. Michael called Robert into his office. "I need you to find out everything about the maid, Evelyn Carter. Background, records, anything." Robert frowned. "Is there a problem?" "I don't know," Michael admitted. "Maybe there's something I'm missing." Hours later, Robert returned with a thin file. "Not much to find, sir," he said, handing it over. Michael flipped through the papers: birth certificate, address, a few hospital records. Then one document stopped him cold. Evelyn Carter, volunteer nurse, St. Mary's Orphanage. Under it, a note: left position after tragic fire, 3 years ago. Michael's heart sank as he read the details. She had lost her younger brother, Daniel, in that fire. She had been found unconscious outside the building, clutching a child's burnt toy. He leaned back in his chair, staring at her photo, that same quiet smile, now heavy with meaning. "She lost her brother," he whispered. "And she still prays for me?" The next morning, Michael couldn't focus on anything. He found himself standing outside the service quarters, listening to her voice through the door. Inside, Evelyn was speaking softly, not to anyone, but to herself. "I know Daniel," she whispered. "He's a lonely man. Maybe if I just show a little kindness, he'll stop hurting inside." Michael froze. His chest ached at her words. She wasn't pretending. She wasn't acting. She truly cared. For a man who had given her nothing. Later, at dinner, Michael made an unusual request. "Evelyn," he said as she served the soup, "sit down for a moment." Her eyes widened. "Sir, I shouldn't." "I insist," he said softly. She sat hesitantly, hands folded in her lap. The dining hall was silent except for the rain tapping the windows again, as if repeating last night's memory. Michael looked at her and asked, "Why did you pray for me yesterday?" She froze. The spoon in her hand trembled. I didn't think you were awake." "I wasn't," he lied, his voice calm. "But I heard." Her eyes glistened. "Because you looked lonely, like you carry too much. I just wanted peace for you." He looked away, throat tight. No one had ever said something like that to him, without expecting anything in return. When Evelyn left the room, Michael sat there for a long time, staring at the untouched food. He realized something he hadn't felt in years: shame. For his coldness, his suspicion, his arrogance. And beneath it all, a question began to rise in his chest. What else is she hiding behind that quiet kindness? Do you believe kindness can truly heal someone who's forgotten how to feel? Or will Michael's curiosity end up hurting them both? The next few days passed in a strange haze for Michael Reynolds. He still went to the office, signed papers, attended meetings, but his mind wasn't there. It was stuck on Evelyn. Every time he saw her quietly working in the background, polishing a vase, arranging flowers, humming faintly, something inside him softened. And every time, guilt followed. He had tested her. He had spied on her. And still, she had prayed for him. That thought gnawed at him. One rainy afternoon, Michael sat alone in his study, staring at her file again. Her brother's photo, a cheerful boy of 8, smiled up at him. The report said unidentified electrical fault had caused the fire. But Michael recognized the name of the construction company that had built the orphanage, Reynolds Group Contractors. His company. His responsibility. He felt the air leave his lungs. He whispered, "Oh God, no." The fire that killed her brother had been caused by a building his firm constructed. Corners had been cut. Materials compromised. He had signed the approval himself, years ago. His hands trembled as he grabbed the edge of the desk. Evelyn had no idea. And yet, she had prayed for him. That night, the storm outside grew violent. Thunder rolled through the mansion like angry drums. Michael found himself pacing the hallway, unable to breathe under the weight of guilt. He saw Evelyn through the slightly open kitchen door, wrapping leftover food neatly into containers. Then she pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside were sandwiches and fruits. She whispered, "For the old man by the gate. He didn't eat yesterday." Michael's eyes burned. Even after everything she'd been through, she still thought of others. He turned away, leaning against the wall, his chest heaving. The next morning, he called Robert into his office. "I want the St. Mary's orphanage site rebuilt, from scratch. Everything paid by me personally." Robert blinked. "But sir, that project." "Just do it," Michael snapped, voice cracking. "No press, no publicity. She must never know it's me." For the first time in years, Michael didn't care about profit. He cared about peace. About forgiveness. But peace was not so easily earned. That evening, as Evelyn passed by the study, she saw him sitting there, shoulders slumped, eyes red, an unopened bottle of whiskey beside him. He looked broken, smaller somehow. "Sir?" she asked softly. Michael turned, his voice heavy. "Do you ever forgive someone who doesn't deserve it?" Evelyn hesitated. "Maybe, that's when forgiveness means the most." He looked at her, eyes glassy with pain. "Even if they destroyed your world?" Her voice quivered. "Especially then." The silence that followed was thick. Painful. It was the kind of silence that makes your heart ache without a sound. She gave a small nod and walked away. Michael's whisper followed her down the hall. "I'm so sorry, Evelyn. You just don't know it yet. Would you forgive someone if you found out they were the reason behind your deepest pain?" It was nearly midnight when the truth began to unravel. Evelyn was finishing her chores when she noticed the faint glow from Michael's office. Curiosity tugged at her. He had been acting strange for days. Quiet. Distant. Almost afraid. She knocked gently. "Sir? Should I close the windows for you?" He didn't answer. The sound of rain filled the silence. Heavy, rhythmic, merciless. She stepped inside. Michael sat behind his desk, surrounded by papers. Old files. Contracts. Blueprints of the orphanage. And then she saw it, her brother's photo lying beside them. Her heart stopped. "Why do you have that?" she whispered. Michael froze. His lips parted, but no words came. Evelyn picked up the photo with trembling hands. "Why do you have this? Where did you get it?" Finally, he spoke, voice low, breaking. "Evelyn, there's something I need to tell you." She shook her head. "What is this?" He rose slowly, stepping closer. His eyes glistened with tears. "The orphanage fire. It wasn't just an accident." Evelyn's face paled. What are you saying?" He took a shuddering breath. "My company built that building. I signed the safety clearance. The materials weren't up to code. I didn't know then, but it was my fault." The words fell like thunder. For a moment, neither moved. Only the sound of rain crashing against the windows filled the space between them. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. She stumbled back, shaking her head. "No, you're lying. You're just trying to." "I'm not," Michael said, voice breaking. "I found the records. I checked everything. I've lived with this guilt for years, but I didn't know who it hurt until now." She pressed her hands against her mouth, sobbing quietly. "My brother. Daniel. He was only 8. "I know," he whispered. "And I'll never forgive myself." She turned away, gripping the table for balance. "How could you?" she cried. "You had everything. You didn't even care who suffered because of your money." Michael took a step forward but stopped when she flinched. "I'm rebuilding the orphanage," he said softly. "It's all I can do now. But I don't expect forgiveness." Her eyes met his, filled with rage and heartbreak. "Then don't ask for it," she whispered. "Some wounds don't heal just because you regret them." She ran out of the room, tears mixing with the rain as she disappeared down the hall. Michael stood there, motionless. He had built an empire from ambition, but in one night, he realized it was built on ashes. He turned to the window, the reflection of the storm flickering across his tear-streaked face. And for the first time, he whispered something he had never said aloud. "God, if she never forgives me, I'll still thank you for letting me meet her." If you discovered the person you cared for was responsible for your deepest pain, would you ever forgive them? The mansion was quiet after that night. Too quiet. Days passed, and Evelyn didn't show up for work. Her room was empty, her uniform neatly folded on the bed. Michael walked past the closed door every morning, hoping she'd be there, humming, cleaning, anything. But she was gone. He told himself he deserved it. He had taken from her what could never be replaced. Yet still, her absence hurt more than he ever imagined. Each night, he found himself in the same spot, sitting by the window, listening to the echo of her prayer. For kindness to find its way back to you. Kindness. He had spent a lifetime chasing power and control. Now all he wanted was the peace that came from that one simple word. 3 weeks later, Robert entered his office carrying a brown envelope. "Sir," he said carefully, "this came for you." Michael frowned. "Who's it from?" "No return address. But I think you'll want to see it." Inside the envelope was a single handwritten letter, the writing delicate, familiar. He opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Mr. Reynolds, when you told me the truth, I thought my heart would never stop hurting. For days, I hated you. I hated the sound of your voice, your wealth, your calmness, all of it. But then I remembered what I prayed for. I asked for peace in your heart. Maybe that peace only comes when truth finally comes to light, even if it hurts. I realized something. My brother's life wasn't just about how he died. It was about how much love he gave in the short time he was here. And maybe, if I stay angry forever, I'd be letting that love die too. So, I'm choosing to forgive. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to heal. I've gone back to St. Mary's. The rebuild you ordered, I found out it was you. I saw the new walls rising, the laughter of children returning. That's what Daniel would have wanted. I don't know if I'll ever come back. But I hope when you look at the sky, you'll think of the people who made you human again. Evelyn." By the time he finished reading, Michael's hands were shaking. Tears blurred the ink, dripping onto the paper. He pressed the letter to his chest, whispering her name. "Evelyn, thank you." Outside, the rain had returned, soft, cleansing, almost gentle. He stood by the window, watching the world blur beyond the glass. And for the first time in years, he smiled, not the practiced CEO smile, but a real one. He whispered to the empty room, "I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'll live the rest of my life trying to earn it." Months later, the newly rebuilt St. Mary's Orphanage opened its doors. Michael stood at a distance, unnoticed by the crowd. Children laughed, their voices ringing through the air like bells. And there she was, Evelyn, holding a child's hand, helping him cut the ribbon. The sunlight fell on her face, calm and radiant. She looked happy. He didn't go up to her. He didn't need to. Forgiveness wasn't about being seen. It was about finally seeing yourself clearly. As he turned to leave, A small paper crane fluttered down beside his feet, carried by the wind from the orphanage window. He picked it up. On the wing, in her handwriting, were 4 words. Kindness found you back. Michael stood there for a long time, holding that fragile paper in his hand. The city stretched below him, alive and endless. For once, he didn't feel above it. He felt part of it. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, Evelyn. And thank you, Daniel, for giving me back my soul." Thought Balloon, do you believe forgiveness can truly change a person's heart, even someone who's caused so much pain? Or do some wounds never fully heal?